All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. You know what that means. Ethan Stone of Saturday Down South is here. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just finished a shift at SDS. I've had a long day. I've been up pretty decent amount today, but some good stuff from ACC and Big Ten media days the past couple days. That's been a lot of fun. But yeah,
I love the way you describe being up at 6. Like I get up at 6 every day. Like but
I've been doing stuff all day, is I guess what I mean.
Haven't we all, Ethan? Like, haven't we all? You're not getting a pity party from me here. I'm just reading this stuff and I'm like, welcome to adulthood, sir. Welcome. Like, this is a rude awakening, Ethan Stone. Like, this is part of the deal. You gotta.
No, I guess that's true. I mean, I'm just getting into the adult life, I guess. So
yeah, you're pretty new. I mean, you're married though. You're a married man. You're ready. Mm-hmm. You gotta get Home Depot on Saturday. You gotta go. Maybe some Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know if you'll have time. I just don't know if you'll have time. Also here, making his. This is the first time it's an official Go Big Orange Friday member here, Jack Foster, always college football Rocky Top insider. Jack, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a great night, and looking forward to this weekend. 21st birthday, so all the juices are flowing, and just ready for this weekend and football season to start sooner rather than later.
Are you excited to find out what alcohol tastes like?
Yeah, I actually am. I've long been curious. So
yeah. I'm happy for you. It's got to be an exciting feeling to have alcohol for the exact first time tomorrow night. And for the good folks listening on Friday, that will be the day that Jack. What are you gonna do? What is your first league drink gonna be? Do you know?
No, I don't know. So we'll may just make a decision on the spot.
Green tea shot might not be a bad idea to start that way. Green tea shot is always, those were delicious and a good way to start the day. I don't know.
I gotta ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Am I a weirdo for going to the DMV at 8:30 in the morning tomorrow to get a new license?
Now you're responsible.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think I'd agree with Chase there. That's the last thing that 21-year-old Ethan would have done. So props to you. That's
especially like 32-year-old Chase, because guess what? Who still has a Georgia license? That would be me. I've lived in the state of Tennessee for 3 years, and I have not once changed my license. I've thought about going to the DMV 13 times, and I just always am like, I don't want to burn an hour or two. I don't have it in me until it's forced, because like my license doesn't expire for like another 5 years. So I was like, this doesn't feel pertinent. This doesn't feel pertinent to my life right now. And if I can get my insurance and my tax and everything in Tennessee, then do I really need to go through that whole process? So you're ahead of me, Jack. You're ahead of me.
3 years is crazy. I've been in South Carolina 50 days, and I'm worried about not having my registration.
All right, well, that's different. Yeah, you need to have your registration, Ethan. That's way more serious than just changing what state you're in for your license. My license is still valid. I'm not writing dirty out here. Like, hold on, sir. Very different.
I'm getting on top of it. We have plans to do it within a week. It's just 3 years is crazy.
All right. Well, you know what?
Come on.
Yeah, well, look, this is not a bully pulpit over here, Ethan Stone. Just because you're sad that you've been up since 6 a.m. and don't take it out on me. Don't take it out on me. I didn't do this to you. No, it's all good vibes here. Jack's birthday's turning up 8:30 though. But see, here's the thing, Jack. You're in what, Smyrna?
No, Paris, Tennessee.
Or Paris, Tennessee. Okay. What's the DMV line over there? Are you going to be the only one there?
I made an appointment, so hopefully I can be in and out.
Right, like you're in there. Like that's gonna be a quick and easy process. Right. I grew up in Atlanta, and like the DMV at Atlanta, you're there for hours. Like it's a whole day. Like that's
a whole day event.
That's a day. So I think for me, I just have Atlanta in the brain. Like my wife can't stand it. My mom gets anxiety when she comes up and she's like, "Do you still have a a Georgia license?" And like they all hate it. Like they all collectively get collectively more anxiety than I get about it. Like I just, maybe part of it is like I don't want to give up my last Georgia identification. Maybe I want to keep it for as long as possible because it's the last thing that I have that would ever let people know that I am an original Georgian and I'm a Peach State guy through and through. How would they know?
Yeah.
I don't
You're
know.
bringing up good points.
Outside of the Braves and Hawks memorabilia in your room, no one knows.
But I mean, who's in here? Like this is, I mean,
Exactly.
my wife's very
Yeah.
familiar. Like my wife's, she's familiar with the whole Atlanta stuff. She's familiar with my backstory. We made sure to cover that before the wedding. That's a marriage tip that Ethan and I can share with you. You want to make sure that the wife, that your partner is pretty familiar with where you're from and where you grew up before you get married. It can go a long way.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. Jack Foster, first question for you here.
Mhm.
What does it mean? Cai Bates makes the decision, 4-star corner out of Florida, ends up at LSU. LSU made a late push here. It seemed like it was down to LSU and Tennessee here late. However, he does not end up at Tennessee. Tennessee still has Caleb Beasley, highly sought after corner in this class. You had Christian Conner, you had Ricky Gibson, you had Jordan Matthews in the last class. So it's not as though they have not landed some big high-profile corners to this point in the last 2 cycles, but this is kind of it. And it seems like they're not really in the mix for any other big 4 or 5-star corners for this class, and that they're going to have to go back in the portal to replenish some depth after this year. But what do you make of Cai Bates not picking the Vols, and are you okay with the way this secondary class is going to shake out in 2024?
I am. I mean, obviously, you'd like to see a player of that caliber commit to Tennessee, but I think you hit the nail on the head on the back half of your when you were asking the question. Just the guys they brought in last cycle; those guys are going to be entering their sophomore seasons next year, poised to take a big step. I'm high on Ricky Gibson. I think Jordan Matthews is a dude, and of course Christian Conner's good, and Caleb Beasley is a really big commit too, blue chip guy. So, I think I look at this Tennessee secondary here over the next couple of years. It's still a net positive. Cai Bates is a loss for sure, and like you said, there's no other players that they're really in the mix for at the moment. But I'm not too worried about this secondary, and I wouldn't lose much sleep over it.
I think it was kind of alarming, Ethan, when I looked at it, where I was like, I didn't realize that Cai, if he had ended up picking Tennessee, he would have been the highest corner recruit to this point for Heupel's classes. Like, he would have been higher than Caleb Beasley. He would have been higher than Matthews and Gibson, Conner. Like, he actually would have been a sneaky big guy. And when I look at the last 2 classes, one of the things, it's like what Jack, you were just talking about with just the depth they built the last 2 cycles. But when you look at the top of both of these 2 classes, Ethan, it's still primarily offensive guys. The top 10-ish is still mostly offensive guys. And I mean, that's just going to be part of the deal when you have Josh Heupel as your offensive, or as your coach. Like, you're just going to get the bigger fish. Like, you're going to get the Matthews, the Nikos, you're just going to have a better hit rate for the 4 and 5 stars on the offensive side of the ball with this kind of scheme. But does it worry you that it does seem like there is now a trend here that they're not going to land those kind of premier corners and maybe even defensive line guys that we'll get to in a second with this staff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'd say I'm necessarily worried about it. Like you said, Tennessee, Josh Heupel, the thing for Tennessee is always going to be offense. It's flashy. When you look at the 2 top recruits in the class of 2024 right now, I believe it's Staley and it's Mike Williams. It's 2 wide receivers. And then after that, I think off the top of my head, it might be Merkling. I'm not really sure.
I think it's Jonathan Eccles off the top of my head.
Okay. Tight end. Another one right there. He's moving to tight end. Obviously, kind of, I think he was defensive line when he was first and then wanted to move to tight end later. But, I mean, the 2 that Tennessee's going to be always pretty good at. Now, we say that, and we're going to get into one a little later, but it's going to be Rodney Garner and it's going to be the flashy offense. Those are the 2 guys, not 2 guys, but the 2 places I feel like that I would feel the most confident for Tennessee. Like, you don't have to worry about it. You may have to worry a little bit sometimes about offensive line. You may have to worry a little bit about secondary sometimes, but Rodney Garner is usually going to do his job, and Josh Heupel, and just how flashy this offense, the history of it, the success that they've had with Jalen Hyatt, with Hendon Hooker, with Darnell Wright, with just a fun offense in general. It's something that these young players coming in, they see and they say, I want to go beat Alabama. I want to go out there and have the same amount of fun that all these guys that are going to the NFL and getting paid for it are going to be having. That's just going to compound on top of each other when I feel like when this year happens, and once all the stars that Tennessee has, Brew McCoy, Joe Milton's going to get drafted, people like that, when you start kind of keep talking about that, the offense is always going to have, I feel like, that pipeline of players that can just get people coming in. Rodney Garner, as I feel like we're probably going to talk about here soon, Cameron Franklin, one of the more interesting pieces that I think is kind of on Tennessee's radar right now. As far as like, I don't know, his importance to Tennessee right now, Tennessee doesn't have any like big, highest rated lineman that Tennessee has right now. And I mean, I think Franklin's like 30 pounds heavier than he is. So when you see that kind of level of physicality, you say, oh, that's the type of thing that Tennessee really is missing when you start talking about the fact that, hey, sometimes you get a little front loaded with just these flashy wide receivers and these flashy, quarterbacks, whatever, fill in the blank there, where you don't kind of realize that, ultimately this game, even though Heupel likes to spread things out a little bit, this game is about the trenches. Football is one of the trenches ultimately. And so you got to kind of start adding some of these guys eventually as the thing moves on here.
Jack, how big is Cam Franklin? It looks like he might actually be trending. Like this the nature of recruiting. Like maybe it is trending back in Tennessee's favor for Cam, and it looks like he might be making a decision sooner rather than later. Bennett Warren is making a decision on July 31st, four-star offensive tackle, and it looks like that one's down to Tennessee, Michigan. So that's a lot of big targets where Tennessee is the final two. And if you want to see a fan base explode, if Tennessee is the final two for Cam Franklin, Cai Bates, and Bennett Warren, and they don't close any of those three, like Mike Matthews is great. It's a big win, but like that's Heupel's going to get introduced to the first iteration of like the Vols are like, is this Dan Mullen all over again? Is this this is the stuff that look, it doesn't mean the sky is falling. It just means that like, okay, this might be a problem. Like I think if they go over 3, I think it's fair to be like, okay, this can't be the trend year over year. Like if you want not, because we talked about before we got started here, you can't compare it to Georgia. Georgia's in their own stratosphere. That's what you want to be. Then you're just going to be unhappy for the remainder of being a Tennessee fan, really. Just stay away from that for a while. Just keep that out of your mind. But in terms of Florida, in terms of A&M, in terms of Bama, in terms of LSU, teams like that where it's like you're trying to you want to be better than that 10 to 12 range, and Bama's coming in. If you look at the teams who are behind Tennessee right now, a couple of them are going to pass them eventually. Like you look at the commits that they have in the boat, and I'm like, Tennessee's got to be careful here because like they finished 12th last year, I think, in their class. They're sitting right at 9 or 10 depending on who you look at. But Franklin goes somewhere else, and then you're really looking at like, oh, they're going to have to hit the portal again. They're going to have to find not just an Omar Norman lot in this cycle. They're going to have to bring 2 different guys. Like you got Devin Hobbs, who hopefully will be a big guy, but Gardner rotates. Rodney Gardner plays a lot of dudes in the defensive line, and you have to get more and more dudes. And we haven't even seen the Joshua Josephs and the James Pierce breakthrough yet. Maybe that's this year, but like I think it's fair for fans to kind of wonder about what's going on with the defensive line and where we're prioritizing recruiting resources if Bates, Warren, and Franklin end up elsewhere, and Cam Fountain too from a while back. What do you think?
Right. No, I think it's huge. And you talked about all those SEC teams that have ruled the SEC from recent memory: LSU, Georgia, Bama. What does it seem like they have every single year, no matter what? A dude who can get after the quarterback. Tennessee needs one of those guys to keep up with those teams, and maybe Josh Joseph ends up being that guy in the near future. But I think Cam Franklin will be a huge get for Tennessee, and one that is of the utmost importance. They talk about staying in the top 10 in recruiting class for the 2024. I think they need a guy like Cam Franklin to further cement themselves in the top 10. I think this one is significantly more important than Cai Bates was. And you talk about Rodney Gardner, you have faith in him to be able to get stuff like this done, but you want to see it with a big time recruit like Cam Franklin. So, I think this one is really important and probably the most important in the 2024 class moving forward. Not as a whole, maybe, but definitely moving forward.
And I should say, like, if you look at the current 247 rankings right now, teams that are behind Tennessee, they're at 10th. A&M, LSU, Oregon, Oklahoma, Miami, Texas. I have a very hard time believing the majority of those teams are not going to add more commitments and they're going to pass Tennessee. And I'm not saying they all will, but it can get ugly in a hurry. And it's just recruiting's tough. And this is the toughest part, but talent acquisition is still the name of the game. And unfortunately, the scheme's awesome. It's great, but talent acquisition wins. And for Tennessee fans who are pointing out like they're 9-10, okay, like that's where they're at right now. but there is a lot of movement, and I have a very, very hard time believing that Texas is going to finish 20th in recruiting. I have a hard time believing that that's going to be the case. Like, they're coming. So you have to close on some of these big names if you want to stay in that important blue chip ratio range. And I just think this is going to be a big next couple weeks, because then it just really dies down until those late Arian Carter type additions right before national or early signing day later on this year. But I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens down the stretch here, but I think it's excuse me, very okay for Tennessee fans to be a little bit concerned about that. Switching gears a little bit, when we were talking about the secondary for the Vols, Ethan, I want to do a different position preview here on this very program week over week as we get ready for the college football season return. And I wanted to first ask, we talked about Cai Bates at the top of the show. When you look at the secondary depth and you look at the group as a whole, who will start, who's going to get a lot of time, where are you at? Are you optimistic this secondary make a jump? And who are you maybe the most excited about in the secondary this year? And who are you most dubious / worried about?
A lot of questions. I'd say most excited. I'm pretty excited to see Wesley Walker from a
PFF legend.
Position.
Yeah.
What?
PFF legend, Wesley Walker.
Yeah,
safety in the country.
From a safety position that last year, I mean, let's just call it how it was. It was bad. It was bad. Tennessee safety position last year with Trayvon Flowers obviously moving out. Kind of some uncertainty with Jalen McCullough right now, with him facing, I don't even know what it was from like 8 months ago. I like an assault charge that he's getting indictment for. I'm not really sure how that's playing out, so I'm not going to speak too much to it because I just don't know. But at safety, the one thing that feels pretty safe right now, I feel like, is Wesley Walker, kind of the backup guy that's going to be moving into the starting position this year. And I'm also interested to see who's going to be that other Steve right next to him. I mean, is it going to be Christian Charles, who is kind of moving back to his position that he was as freshman in 2021 after moving to corner 2022, kind of showing some flashes there and then them wanting to move him back. And that kind of brings me to another thing here is, if they're confident that Charles can be moving back to safety, at least at the start of spring, which is, when that started, if they're confident in that, they have to be confident in at least a couple of the cornerbacks. Because as of right now, the way I see it is probably Gabe Judy-Lawley and then Kamal Hadden, maybe Doneiko Slaughter there, and then you start running into some of the freshmen, Matthews, Gibson, either one of them potentially making a bit of an impact to where they feel comfortable enough to move Charles over to safety. And then what am I forgetting here? At the star position, I feel like that's pretty locked up as well with Tamarian McDonald. I feel like he and Walker are probably the two extra safe ones that are going to have their spots in the secondary solidified. Everywhere else, man, there's a lot of guys kind of similar to how it was last year. There's a lot exactly all the puzzle pieces are going to fit, and I feel like there's potential for it to be fine, for them to find those pieces after a bit of, plugging in, seeing if it works, seeing if this thing works better than another one. But I mean, if I had to name you a starting five back there right now, I'd say probably Tamarian McDonald at the star, and then Wesley Walker at the safety. Probably Doneiko Slaughter, just because he's a bit of a safer option right now at the other safety spot. And then Judy-Lawley and probably Kamal Hadden at the corner spots.
I think that's the big thing too, Jack, is like, I think Gabe Judy-Lawley I'm super in on. I think I'm all in on Gabe Judy-Lawley. And I want to see Doneiko back to safety. The hope is like Tank McCullough is not the starter in the back end, that you go Wesley Walker and Doneiko as your two safeties. I think you feel pretty good if that's where you end up as your starting safeties to start the year. I think every Vol fan would feel pretty good about that. And then Kamal Hadden, we'll see. Like, it seems like he's had a good spring, but if you have Gabe Judy-Lawley and Kamal Hadden, I think that's a good spot to be in. But the one thing I worry about moving Doneiko is, like, would Willie Martinez start Warren Burrell? And I can't take Warren Burrell on one side and Kamal Hadden on the other. I won't allow it. I can't do it. I can't. Like, two completely different corners for very different reasons, but I think my sanity could not work out. I don't know if you're in the same boat.
I feel like Warren Burrell's always kind of gotten a bad rap.
I mean, he's just not good.
He's not, but I'd rather have him, like, I think he'd be more effective than Kamal Hadden. Like I feel like he should be
I
ahead
don't
of
even know
Kamal
about
Hadden.
that. At least Kamal Hadden's gonna try. Warren Burrell is going 5 feet off. That man is like, how much cushion would you like? Warren Burrell is just like the most laid back cornerback we've ever had at Tennessee. That man is just like, whatever you want to do. You're not getting behind me. Like you're not not gonna beat me 80 yards down the field. But you want this 40 in front of you? You want this 5-yard curl? That's all you, sir. This is your space. This is your space. I'm getting some cardio. Like I'm here. I'm out here. We're in good shape. But like, yeah, that's my game. If you have your space, I'll have mine, and we'll have a fun time. Kamal Hadden's like, hey, I'm getting burned. Guess what? I'm still talking. Like the next play, I'm getting a pick 6. Like that's how it works. Yeah,
he'll always go down for trash talking SC when it's a blowout. 100%.
I mean, goodness gracious. But he might actually. But he's more. I think he's more talented or has a higher upside than Warren Burrell. We know exactly what Warren Burrell is at this point as a corner. I don't think there's another jump there, right?
Fair. Yeah, I wouldn't assume so. In year 5 at least, maybe 6.
I mean, yeah. Did he play all? How much? When was he
played
available?
Like 3 or 4 games last year.
Okay.
And then was out for the season. But to originally answer your question, I think Doneiko Slaughter's got to be big for Tennessee secondary this season. Gabe Juliali, yes, but he's a transfer. Doneiko Slaughter, this is his time to shine. And Wesley Walker, I'm probably the most excited about, like Ethan said, to see what he can do with that full starting role and playing the majority of the snaps. But Doneiko Slaughter, I think, has a lot of potential. He flashed it a little bit last year. Needs to kind of put it all together. There was a lot of times where it was ugly, and there was a lot of times where it was really great with Doneiko Slaughter on the field last year. So if he can put it all together, I think he'll be a really solid piece for Tennessee, and one that's maybe flying under the radar a little bit here in the offseason.
Jack, I'm just real fast. I'm a little confused, not about Slaughter in general, but just where I guess the team is, or the coaching staff is kind of wanting him to be. It feels like I've heard some things that he's safety, some things that he's kind of a backup corner. I don't know. Do you have any insight on that?
I thought coming out of the spring, I thought Doneiko was going to play more corner, and that Christian Charles was pretty much all the way back to safety. And of course, Walker and you got Tank and Turntine and other guys at safety too. But I thought Doneiko Slaughter was going to primarily play corner this season. If Charles takes a step and he's really good at safety, I think that's where you want Slaughter, is at corner, because the depth at corner, taking away the freshmen, not trying to rely on them too much, is not a whole lot. I think the secondary depth as a whole is good, but how many, guys that can really provide some, that can really do something on the field is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of guys, but how many are going to be that effective? So if Slaughter is effective at corner, I think you plug him there. If Christian Charles is back at safety and making an impact.
I think before we move on from corner, I think just in general, the room, kind of going back to Chase's original question, and I'll keep it brief. I think the secondary could be legitimately a considerably better step up from last year. I also think it can absolutely just tank and be awful. Like I don't, depending on how the coaching staff decides to go about putting the puzzle pieces, that I think at the very beginning of the season is really going to be an impact of kind of how it succeeds moving forward. I don't know. There's just a lot of guys. There's a lot of people that can play their specific positions. I'm just not where's best, I guess, is the main question for me heading into training camp, heading into the season.
I think there's a chance where it's the play, there may be more talent back there, but I think the defensive line could be worse this year than a year ago. And if the pass rush is worse than a year ago, and Roman Harrison and Tyler Barron don't take a major step, or Joshua Josephs and James Pierce are just exactly what they were a year ago, the pass rush is worse. Byron Young was really it, for a lot of the year. He was incredibly important for that group. And
I'll walk back a little bit. I don't think I meant completely fall out, but I do think they could potentially, the secondary anyway, could potentially be worse than last. I don't mean to.
The only position group on defense,
guys, so ultimately they're not going to just fall apart. That was kind of a miss.
Well, I think I don't know if you share this opinion, Jack, but the only position I think is actually settled, and I'm not worried about it at all, is linebacker. Keenan Pili, Aaron Carter, Aaron Beasley, it's done. I'm good.
Plug and play. Herring, plug and play.
Yeah, they're going to be good. I'm not worried about those three, and they're going to be good.
Yeah. and Big O in the interior is good, but even the interior defensive line depth isn't great behind him.
Yep.
But I really am high on Josh Josephs, so I think the pass rush will be fine. I don't know if it'll be better than a year ago. I think if Tennessee's going to win 10 games, it has to be. But it could be. It has the potential to be. I think Pierce and Josephs are really talented, and I always thought, Roman Harrison had a pretty good season last year when he was on the field, and maybe he can take a step. And Tyler
I love
Barron,
Roman Harrison.
I feel like you kind of know what Tyler Barron is, but he could be better. But I think the upside for Tennessee's pass rush lies definitely in Joshua Josephs and Roman Harrison not too far behind. And then the linebackers solidified. Secondary, to go back to what Ethan said, I don't think it can be worse because I feel like it was really bad last year when the injury bug hit. Those guys weren't playing great, but think about how many guys were injured. Like, it was just so many in the back half of the season. So with how many guys they have this year, I don't feel like that'll be as much of a big deal.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a misspeak on it. I don't think they can absolutely crash them. I think they have the potential to be worse, but I don't think they can crash and burn. That was totally a misspeak.
Okay. The have to win game. I'm curious on this front, Ethan. What do you think is the most important game on Tennessee's schedule? If you had to say is like just the one that Tennessee and Josh Heupel cannot lose this year in year 3, what would you circle as like just you have to win this particular game? I'm curious. What would it be?
If you had asked me this a month ago, I think I would have had a different answer. But right now, I think I'm fully set on it. The answer is Florida. I mean, it's early. It's early in the season. Tennessee doesn't win that game, they're in a world of hurt. I mean, the Vols, I feel like, have this opinion, I guess, or the fan base definitely. Me, 100%, even a month ago. This is why I kind of led with that. Is you have this perception that Florida is just going to lie down and they're not very good under Billy Napier and they're just going to kind of go away and blah, blah. But, like, they got talent. I mean, they absolutely have the talent, and they're at home, and it's the beginning of the season with a new quarterback for both teams. But, I mean, with Tennessee not exactly, getting the elephant or the monkey off their back last year by beating Florida, I feel like a lot of people just assume it's a given that the Vols are just going to go in the swamp and beat them, as if that has been what Tennessee has been able to do the past couple decades here. So it's absolutely Florida. I mean, game 3 at the Swamp, you got, I mean, if you lose that game, you can't even, I mean, you go into the UTSA game, which is going to be plenty difficult by itself. You're already going to be sitting with a 2-1 record. That's not even close to what the vibe of what this team wants. It's not the goal of what this team wants. I mean, you want to be competing against Alabama and Georgia, but you don't want to look past them too much to the point where the Gators kind of shock you like they did Utah in week 1 last year.
I think it's Florida too, Jack. Do you disagree? Because it's funny too to think about losing to Florida. Like, you are probably going to win the Virginia and Austin Peay game by like a combined 100 points. Like, I think that might be the margin there for Tennessee. And then things get like, it's just a completely different world going into Gainesville with Joe Milton. And Joe obviously saying like he doesn't lose in Florida, which is just going to be played all week long. And it's just probably on that bulletin board for Florida that week. But like, then you have UTSA at home, South Carolina at home, A&M at home. Like, you get a bye there, which is nice, but like then at Alabama, at Kentucky, like it doesn't get easier. Like, so you have to shake that off quick. Like, you can't just like mope about it. You're like, oh, we've got a top 15, top 10 offense coming into Neyland the following week. We have to get up for that. And then we got Beamer Ball coming in. Like, there's just a lot of pressure to completely bounce back if the Florida game goes awry. And if they lose at Florida, I think it's because Joe Milton imploded. Like, I think that's something where the offense is not good. If Tennessee loses to Florida, it's because it was an absolute mess at quarterback, I feel like. Do you share that?
Hurts isn't going to be the person that beats you.
Another way of saying, like, when looking at Florida, I was going to say, when looking at Florida this season, I mean, the running back duo is great, but, Tennessee's rush defense is really good. So, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over Tennessee facing those guys. I legitimately think Florida's passing attack right there with Auburn could be the worst in the SEC. And I'm just not high on the Gators. It could be a disaster for them this season. I really believe that. I know their defense probably maybe a little bit better, but man, I just don't see, when looking at both rosters, Florida and Tennessee, like something really bad has to happen for Tennessee to lose that game. I don't care if it's on the road. I don't care that the Swamp's been a house of horrors. Something really, really bad has to happen. And I just don't see Joe Milton imploding like that. maybe it happens. And if they lose to Florida, that's a really bad sign for how the season's going to go. But I am more confident in Tennessee beating Florida than I am South Carolina, Kentucky, A&M, and of course the big two, Georgia and Bama. I think Florida is the 6th hardest game on Tennessee's schedule. But it probably is the most important to win because of winning in Gainesville and everything that's associated with that and the fact it's early in the season. So with this question, yeah, it's probably the technical answer, but I really view Kentucky and A&M as those swing games. I think you lose to Bama and Georgia.
Would you flip Georgia and Florida on the schedule if you could?
Oh, yeah.
Like, get the Georgia game out of the way. Like,
Yeah,
let's do that week 3. Yeah.
I don't think Tennessee's beating Georgia in any scenario. So,
right.
yes.
I think I'd flip it too. Like, I think I'd rather get Florida late.
And it's one of my biggest pet peeves is when you lose matters so much.
Yeah.
And it's such a flaw in how the rankings are done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you always want the hardest games at the beginning. Look what happened to Oregon last year.
True.
Florida seems to start well and finish awful too. So absolutely get it.
And it's just
look at last year as a perfect example.
Yeah, and I mean, look at South Carolina. We play South Carolina different at home at the beginning of the season than we do at night on the road. Like, I refuse to do any more night games in South Carolina late in the year. Like, we're not doing that. If we're playing South Carolina late in the year, we're playing at noon, and that's it. 3:30 at the latest is what I'll.
9 o'clock at the latest. 9 in the morning. Let's get this thing.
Let's do a 9 a.m. kick. I would love a 9 a.m. kick.
9 a.m. kick versus South Carolina in October.
I would love it. 9. It might need to be like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the weather right now here in the Southeast, but we might need to do South Carolina, Tennessee at 9 a.m. in September, because I remember what it was like 2 years ago at home. It was one of the hottest college football games I've been to in my life, and I'm just waiting for what it's going to be in the next month. It's going to be, there's going to be some passing out, and there's going to be just a lot of sweat pouring in and out of Neyland Stadium in the next month. But look, that's what we're here for. Ethan, when we switch gears here a little bit quickly on Vols basketball, case for and against series here. Starting Dalton Knecht. When you think about this roster, and we're going to throw in a healthy Cai here, like when Cai is healthy, when you look at the makeup of this team, why do you think Dalton Knecht should end up being a starter and being one of his Coach Barnes's main 5, or why do you think he should not, and he should be viewed maybe in a Tyreek Key role more so? Which way do you lean right now?
I'll make both cases, but the case for I'll take the words right out of Barnes's mouth. His versatility. I mean, I don't think this is the standard necessarily 3-and-D guy that Barnes has gone to the portal and gotten lately. I think he would surprise a lot of people with how physical he is. I think he is a better ball handler than people would think he is. He's more than just a 3-point shooter, even though he is a dang good 3-point shooter. I think he was 39% last year at obviously Northern Colorado. It's going to be a little bit tougher moving into the SEC against SEC defenses, and he's probably going to drop a little bit in production there, but he's still a good 3-point shooter with a good shot, and he has the versatility to kind of be able to move around him more. I mean, I think the lineup for Tennessee basketball, you saying that Cai is healthy in this scenario, would be Cai, Santi. You put Dalton at the 3 with Josiah at the 4 and then Toby at the 5. I think that'd be so much fun. I think that gives Tennessee a lot of different things they can do because of Dalton's versatility, because how Josiah has proven that he can play at the 4. Toby's growth just in general, I feel like at the 5 would be interesting, kind of playing more of a small ball thing, but you still have enough length and athleticism with Josiah and Knecht that at the 3 and the 4 that you can probably see some positive things on both the offensive and defensive side. I'm kind of in the dark on how, I guess, attuned Knecht is to the you got to play defense or you're not going to play here thing. I don't really know where he stands right now. I don't know if he's a good defender, if he's a great defender, if he's a poor defender. I can't really read, I guess, things from practice too much. What I've gotten is that at Northern Colorado, he's a pretty good defender, but that's at Northern Colorado. I mean, you got to move that up when you're going against SEC level competition against Arkansas, Kentucky's, Texas A&M's of the world. It's going to be a little tougher. As far as the case against him starting, is everything Rick Barnes has ever shown about how he makes his lineups, which is, I mean, he's going to go with what he's familiar with. He's going to go with the guys that he trusts. He's going to go I mean, what I said, I think I've said on this show before, that it's very likely going to be Zakai, Santi with Josiah at the 3, Tobe at 4, and then Jonas Adu at the 5. It's a traditional look, and it's something that Barnes dislikes. It's something that he's comfortable with, and that would be the case against, is just Barnes likes who he's got. He likes his, I guess, the familiarity of the people that he has, and he knows he can trust them, and he can walk them out there, and they're going to play good defense, and they're going to play, I guess, to his style, and they're going to do what he says. And that would be my case against, because it's not exactly like Barnes unless you're just oozing with talent to be able to kind of switch things up like that.
So your case against is more so Barnes' track record than anything.
Yeah. I think Knecht is. I mean, it's just so tough because he's coming over from North Colorado, but I do think he is a good starting option for this team if you go away from what Barnes usually likes to do.
No, he is. But I think the bigger case against is Jemai Mashak.
That's a good one.
You made a lot of good points, Ethan, in what you said. Josiah's ability to play the 4, I think, is really strong. I think Tobe Awaka is Tennessee's best post player this year. But Jemai Mashak's what he did last year and how he also fits what Barnes likes, the deep defender through and through. I think he plays that 3 and Josiah plays the 4. And then Zakai and Santi at the 1, too. I could see a path where Knecht starts over James, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like Jemai Mashak has earned his spot in the starting 5, and he's going to be a starter for Tennessee this season. Maybe they go big with Awaka and Adu still. It's not a lot of offense in that 5, but we'll see. I don't know. I feel like I'd lean more so on the side of Knecht doesn't start for Tennessee, at least early on in the season. Non-conference play. Maybe he does in conference play. We'll see how it always shakes up. Something happens. But I think Jemai Mashak is going to be a big factor for Tennessee basketball this season, no matter which way you slice it.
I would 100% agree with Jack for what it's worth. I would say if you had to say right now who's it going to be, is he going to start? I would make the case against. And I do think it's a good point that he brought up that Jemai would probably in that scenario, even if we wanted to go a kind of small ball approach, I think I'd agree that he would go Jemai just because, like I said, he's familiar with him. He's a great defender. He's shown that he can be a great defender. And he's also shown the versatility that he could do the 1, 2, or the 3, Jemai. Mm-hmm. So I would agree with that. Yeah.
Well, it's also like it's a good sign if it's not Jemai for Dalton, because that means he beat out Jemai. Like he's playing better. He earned Barnes' trust. Like I think Jemai is like, to more of Jack's point here. Like I think he's going to get benefited out for what he did last year. Like I think it's his job to lose. Like Dalton is going to have to play better defense. He's going to have to score more, and there's going to be a fine balance. I think that's going to be part of it. Is like Barnes is going to have to find. Because a lot of these guys, I mean, Mashak has a lot to be desired on the offensive end. Tobe Awaka has a lot to be desired in the offensive end. And, like, they're going to have to play. Like, what if Dalton Knecht has a lot to be desired in the defensive end? What if Freddie DeLeon leaves a lot to be desired in the defensive end? Like, I think he's just going to have to... He's going to have to be very careful with how he organizes this rotation. And I wonder, too. I would say that Dalton does not start, but I would not be surprised if he's a starter in January, because Barnes is going to start Jemai, Jonas, and Tobe, and it's always going to be like the first 4 minutes of the game, and we're just all in the group chat like, oh, who would have thought that it was 2-0 4 minutes into this game, and there's just an absolute rock fight, but they're already the other team's exhausted because they're like, can you please, like, this is not basketball. I don't know what this is. Friend of the pod, Jay Billis, can't watch it. He's like, this is too much. This isn't basketball. And we're gonna get that all year long with some of the lineups that Barnes throws out. But like, I think the starting 5 will be DeLeon, Santi.
Was Zakai hurt? Yes.
Was Zakai? Well, hold on. I was gonna say too.
Oh.
I think DeLeon and Santi play well together. And I think if they play well, Barnes was very open about, like, I did not want to start Zakai. Like, we all remember the Colorado experiment last year.
I think he was like that for a while, and then he wasn't towards the end, though.
Yeah, for sure. But like,
looking at you crazy, Chase. But I actually kind of agree with you. That's a good point, because Zakai plays better off the bench. He just does. He just does. So that's not a bad point. I don't hate the take.
I think my gut is I think DeLeon and Santi DeLeon should theoretically, with what we look, and he's bigger than I thought he was going to be. Like watching those practice videos on Rocky Top Insider, go subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already. DeLeon's big. Like he's a lot bigger than I thought. He's long, he's lanky, and I think he is someone as a combo guard more than happy to score. I think he's going to take a lot of pressure off Santi, and I could see he and Santi working a little bit better than people might expect right out of the gate here and having some really good chemistry. And if that's working, Barnes is going to roll with what's working, and he's not going to rush Cai back, especially in the lineup in heavy minutes. Like that's actually the best of both worlds for Tennessee. If Cai doesn't need to start and Freddie is playing at a really good level, like if Dalton ends up starting, it's because he's playing better than Jemai, and like that's a good thing because that was a big transfer portal win. So it's like if Dalton's in the starting lineup, guess what? That means Tennessee hit on that transfer, and that he's a really important player because he has a higher upside than Jemai. We all love Jemai Mashak and what he did, but like, I mean, if Tennessee is going to make a Final Four run, I think there's a better path to Dalton Knecht being the 3 in that scenario than Jemai, but Josiah Jordan-James, I don't think we'll start. I just think there's going to be a lot of different matchups, but I do think the first one I wanted to start with was Dalton because I'm curious to see how that goes. Maybe he wins it outright in camp, though. Maybe it's something where he plays better with the starters than Jemai does, and we see Dalton. But I think that is the first big matchup here is Dalton versus Jemai because I think it's down to those two at the 3.
I agree. Fully agree.
Not DJ Jefferson here.
You don't think Josiah is going to be... Or do you think Josiah is going to start anywhere, Chase?
No, I don't. I don't think. You don't think
they're going to implement small ball ever?
Yeah.
Oh, Awaka Adu every time.
Yeah, he's going to Waka Adu. Like, there's no way Barnes is not starting that way.
I would be very surprised.
I think that's the opening day starting lineup for sure.
Yeah,
but I don't know how long it lasts.
I would be very surprised if both Dalton and Mashak are over Josiah at the 3. I would think they'd move Mashak.
No, I would not be surprised.
Yeah. Really?
Well, I think I would be more surprised if Ledlum was still in the lineup because Ledlum can't play. Like Ledlum can only be at the 4. So like if you want to get Josiah minutes and if he's back in this scenario and Ledlum's still here, I think Ledlum. I mean, I would say that Josiah would have to play a lot of 3 because there's no room. Like if you're gonna do Ledlum, Tobe, and Jonas, like that's just Ledlum can't move up. Like Josiah is the only versatile, quote unquote, big in this scenario, so he would have to slide up to the 3. But because they're kind of thinner there now, and I'm sure Barnes has no interest in playing JP Estrella a lot of minutes as a freshman, then
maybe I think JP Estrella seats the court, and
I think he does too. But I don't think Barnes wants to. I don't think that was Barnes' plan. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think Josiah does not have a path to starting right out of the gate, and I think he plays more 4 than anything. I don't think
that's surprising. I'm not sure I'm convinced that he's going to start, but I do think that's surprising that you don't think there's a path for him to start with just Barnes's whole thing. I mean, I've been harping on it for 10 minutes now. Just Barnes's whole thing with familiarity. I really find it surprising that you don't think he'll find stuff. I mean, he's the oldest guy on the team.
Yeah. But I think there's more spunk, like him coming in off the bench, especially without Zakai. Like he's fine as a lead ball handler. I think there might be some with Zakai out to start the year. I think the smart play is to let him run the second unit and to run first guy out, bring the ball up a lot, take the pressure off Santi and stuff. I think there's more value bringing Josiah off the bench than anybody else.
Fair. I mean, I've already said it basically, but I think there's a path to him starting. I just think it's at the 4, not the 3.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand. And it'd be a small lineup for Tennessee, which is not what we see Rick Barnes implement a lot. And that's why I don't think it'll happen at the very beginning of the season, but maybe by the time SEC play rolls around.
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of lineups. I think that's unavoidable.
Yes,
that's what I'm most excited about. I think there
needs to be a lot of Toby at the 5, man. I think Toby at the 5 makes this lineup so interesting because you got the talent of Mashak, of James, of likely Knecht to be able to move that versatility around. I think that creates a lot of possibility. And I like Jonas. I do. I just think that Toby is the better option at the 5. Unless you're going up against, Armando Bacot or something like that.
I'm not really worried about him. I'm not worried about Armando Bacot after what we saw this past year. Tennessee's not really sweating that matchup. Jack, as we wrap up here tonight, here on Good Big Orange Friday, your birthday is going to be here in like an hour. So we got to get out of here before Jack officially turns 21. Holman, Luke Holman, Drew Beam,
Yeah.
not a closer. We found out that's why we've always called him a starter. Drew Beam's only a starter. He's not a closer, and
Doesn't know his ABCs, does he?
He does not. He is not always closing. And Luke Holman, former Alabama ace, now LSU ace. He makes the jump, following Paul Skeens to be the next just dominant Tiger arm that drives us all mad next spring. So it came down to Tennessee and LSU. Tennessee does not wind up with Holman. What does this mean for Tennessee and their rotation going forward, Jack?
It hurts. I think it stings more than anything that you lost the two pitchers that you're probably going after most in the transfer portal to the same school. And Xavier's Justin Lower and Luke Holman, both to LSU. That's a tough pill to swallow. But I think the rotation will be fine. Luke Holman would have helped matters tremendously. But you got Drew Beam as the Friday night guy, presumably, unless they add another guy. I don't think AJ Russell's starting on Fridays. And then after that, I think AJ Russell's a fine starter for Tennessee next season. But then that third one's completely up in the air. I would think Wyatt Evans and Nate Snead are the top two candidates. I don't know if I have a lean right now. I'm going to have to see what Wyatt Evans looks like in fall ball, because he obviously didn't play at all last year, but he showed a lot of potential in his freshman season, man. And he's a lefty. So, that's a chip in his belt. But Nate Snead's got gas. He's a good arm. I'm curious to see what Frank Anderson can do with him to make him a more well-rounded pitcher, get him another pitch in there in his arsenal. I think he has a higher ceiling maybe than Wyatt Evans, but it'll be down to those two to me for that third starter role. And I feel like Holman going to another school all but nut locks AJ Russell as a starter.
I think AJ's gonna be good. Like AJ was awesome. It's true. Yeah.
I mean, there is not another pitcher on Tennessee's roster that did what AJ Russell did. And what I'm talking about is not have a bad outing.
Yeah.
AJ Russell was never bad. You never saw him do a bad job when he was in a game. Never happened.
Yeah. So. I think they're fine. I think Beam and AJ's fine. But like Chase Burns also out at Wake. It's nice that he didn't end up at LSU too. That would have been a 3-for-3 situation. That would have been just
give him another title. Yeah.
Goodness gracious. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's like Wyatt Evans. Like we'll see. But there's no one else in the portal, right? This is it. Like they're done. So this is whoever's in the building right now is going to be starting for Tennessee the next spring.
I would believe so. Yeah. I don't think they're pursuing much of anyone else. There's a couple of other good pitchers in the portal, but Braden Montgomery comes to mind, but I think Tennessee's done.
Oh, well. Time to tamper. Ethan Stone, what can the good folks check out from you and the team at Saturday?
What a way to close.
At SaturdayDownSouth.com. I'm not affiliated with the university. I can advocate. Ethan Stone, what are the good folks doing at Saturday Down South this week?
Yeah, we've had full coverage the past week of ACC and Big Ten Media Days, kind of as I alluded to earlier. We've been kind of working around the clock, getting coverage of that. And just as we move into camp and football season in general, we'll have obviously more coverage there of our four sites. Obviously, the conferences, except for the Big 12. Pac-12 running into some issues there, but we've got full coverage of that as well.
Did you see this? Did you hear about this? Pac-12 might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Read more at, let me check my notes here, Saturday Down South.
Pac-9 has been here calling them.
Saturday
Out West, the spinoff that Ethan Stone is starting.
No, we have a site, Saturday Out West. But yeah,
there you go.
Check it out there. We'll have full coverage of all of that. Any happenings until college football season starts.
There you go. Always college football star Jack Foster made his on-screen debut on Always College Football. What was that last week? Time is a flat circle.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah, I was on a show last week too.
Yeah.
And then just occasional appearances, but definitely behind the scenes, social media, all that good jazz. Follow us at Always CFB. Greg reacting to Colorado leaving for the Big 12 was a good one. So got a lot of good content coming your way over at ESPN College Football YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. Always College
Did you do
Football.
Gregory there? Was that a slip in of Gregory? Does he go by Gregory?
I don't think I said Gregory, did I?
I think he said Gregory then. I think he
Maybe.
Gregory.
He doesn't go by Gregory though. No.
I also thought you said Gregory in my I don't know. It might have just been a slip, but I thought you said Gregory.
I don't know. I was like, Jack, that's how you know Jack's in with Greg McElroy, where he's like Gregory, man.
Yeah.
Greg or G-Mac. He goes by both. So.
G-Mac.
Yeah, G-Mac.
Okay. I don't know. Do you go by Jack Attack? Have you ever got, was that one?
No, so my nicknames in high school were Jackie Boy, and my dad created a nickname for me that caught on as Jackie Sticks because I played golf in high school. There was a former rock star named Jackie Ix, so that's like a part of it. And I'm skinny, so like sticks
Yeah.
for arms,
That's
so
what I
like
went
Jackie
first because
Sticks.
you and I are both pretty skinny, so I thought
Yeah.
that you just went Sticks. Yeah.
I like that one better. So
Jackie Sticks. I'm using that from here on out. Ethan, do you have any nicknames growing up?
I really don't.
Ethan's a hard one
I'm
to do a
boring.
nickname for.
yeah,
I'm like, I had one teacher once call me Easy E, but that's just because that's what everyone with the first letter of their name being E, that's what everyone called it. I really didn't have any. They called me at when I worked at Chick-fil-A, they called me Stony because it was 1,000 Ethans. So my name tag actually had Stony at Chick-fil-A, which was great.
fun.
So that, I guess that was a nickname. I guess I could say that. I mean, they exclusively called me that for 3 years, so I got to a point where I was responding to only that. So I guess that counts.
I could absolutely see an alternate universe, Bizarro Ethan Stone in LA, who's actually a big stoner. Like I could actually see a stonery in LA version of Ethan.
I thought about going by Producer Sticks. Like,
there we go.
That has a good ring to it. So
I just got Chase Bank, and it wasn't even clever.
Chase Bank?
Yeah, like the people would just be like the bank, and they would just be like Chase Bank.
Huh?
It's terrible.
Chase, your job for when Ryan comes back is find the nickname for Ryan, and then all our names put those nicknames without telling Ryan, of course, and just whatever you come up with is law.
Just naturally throw it out there, and he's just like, "What did I miss? I've been gone for a week," and it's just like their nicknames. There was a lot of bonding that Ryan was just not a part of. Jack's a year older. Times moving forward, it's all different. Well, Jack, happy birthday, sir, because when folks are listening to this, it's will be your birthday to many more. Ethan, thank you as always, my friend. Have a great weekend, the both of you, and I will talk to y'all next week.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.